And this one's unique in that it has a new sort of like locking mechanism, which is, it functions kind of like a liner lock, but it's in a different directionally. It's about 90 degrees twisted from what you would consider like a liner lock. And so this push button actually releases the blade. So,
oh yeah, man,
yeah.
that's great. Hey guys, this is Keith with KnifeJoy, and we certainly appreciate you joining us today. We love doing these interviews and giving you guys a little bit of behind the scenes and letting you meet some of these actual knife makers, knife designers. And today we have Craig Brown of Brown Knives with us, who is a custom knife maker. And just happy to have you on the show, Craig. How are you doing?
I'm doing great. Yeah, thanks for the opportunity. I appreciate you guys reaching out, and happy to share some more information about myself and my business and the knives.
Absolutely, man. That's a great place to start. Tell us a little bit about you and how you got into the knife world.
Okay. So there's like a longer history and a shorter history. So I'll do kind of the shorter version.
Okay.
So I've always kind of had a burning desire to own my own business. So I guess a kind of a small flame of entrepreneurial spirit was always there, but I kind of went the traditional route. I went and got a degree in engineering, and then I started with a company, an aerospace manufacturing company, and I worked there for several years. And this sort of entrepreneurial spirit never died while I was there. And as I kind of worked my way up through the ranks of, becoming from like an associate engineer to more management roles, I found myself being less satisfied with what I was being asked to do. So the management portion of it just wasn't satisfying for me. I wasn't really into managing people. I like the engineering side and I like the manufacturing side. So I kind of started to look for opportunities, business-wise, that I could get into that were low overhead for me to kind of start my journey.
Right.
And so I just kind of, through searching on the internet and kind of talking to a few people, knives came up, and I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like, people really like them. There's, people that really love custom knives. There's one heck of a community around this, particular object. So I kind of started to go down that route. At nighttime, I would kind of moonlight. I would go to work during the day, come home, start designing a knife. So then when I first had my first design done via CAD, I started to figure out ways that I could actually make the knife. So I went through the whole excruciating process of building my own like benchtop CNC, which was like a project in and of itself. It was really difficult to get it to do what I wanted it to do. So I converted like an old Grizzly mill to CNC. So that took a few months to convert it. So I started there with my first knife model. I built everything on that little tiny CNC machine because I knew that my previous job as an engineer, I worked with CNC machines all the time. So I had a lot of familiarity with it. I had familiarity with programming, CAD design, all of that. So it was a pretty easy transition to doing my own product as far as the knife. But, building the CNC, that was quite challenging. So I remember
Tell me about that a little bit. What is I don't know if all of our listeners will know what a CNC machine is. What's that acronym, and what is that machine?
Oh, computer numerical device. So it's a machine that has, I'm using a 3-axis CNC. So it's a machine that uses I use servo motors. You can use stepper motors, but I use servo motors. They're more accurate. And it moves in 3 axes. So X, Y, and then Z. So the machine does all the motions in 3D space. And you use milling bits to machine metal from some sort of billet or blank, and you create the geometry that you want from there. So you use a variety of tools and create the geometry you want.
Yeah. Okay, that's cool. Gotcha. Yeah. So you put this together. So you're literally doing the CAD and then going all the way through to from start to finish, buying materials. And so you had to, first step was kind of deciding you want to do it, but it wasn't kind of like it wasn't a hobby for you. You knew you wanted to be in a business. And so you were doing this to become a business. It wasn't so much a hobby. So you're like, I'm all in and I'm going to start to build my own shop. And this is where I'm going to go with it. Is that right?
Exactly. And it was, I remember those nights where I went through a transition period where I knew that I wanted to do it, but then I saw like it was really difficult. Like the journey was really, a lot of times I wanted to give up, to be honest. I mean, because I was working during the day, long hours, and then I would come home, like eat some food, and then I would go out to like my garage and start
Yeah.
on this other project. And there was many times where I had so many failures that I was like, I don't know if this is even a possibility, because I kind of knew what the expectations were out of a custom knife, and what I was making in the beginning was terrible. Even with
What was
CNC.
it? What were some of the mishaps? What did you, what
Oh,
was,
just so many machining mistakes. People think that because you have a CNC machine that magically, like, you have really, like, you can make something great, but it's not the case. Work holding, the design, the clearances, the tolerancing of the parts is crucial to making anything good. And then understanding just even machining itself, like how fast you can feed through the part, what the RPMs need to be, what type of material you're using, why are you getting this mistake when you're flipping it to like an operation 1 to an operation 2? It's really complex.
okay.
So I had a whole like journey that I had to go through just in the CNC machining world to understand what was required of me and the skill I had to develop to become, a really good machinist. Engineer wise, I had a lot of that, obviously
Figured out,
I'm
right.
developing as an engineer, but the CNC machining was a whole other
Different
skill.
deal. Yeah, doing the manufacturing as well. So how long would you say from once you decided, hey, I'm going to try to make a knife, to getting it all together, to saying, this is it, I've got something that I feel confident that I can sell, that's a good knife? How long would you say that took?
I'd say a solid year. Yeah.
Wow. So so you put some time in to do that, to do it right. Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the first knife that you came out with? I think that you're on like your 5th model now, right? So how long ago was that with your first
it was
model?
the parabolic, and the first one I sold was, I think, the end of 2017.
Gotcha.
And I bit off way more than I could chew with that model, because I started with an integral. So
Okay.
not only had I not made a knife before, but I started with basically one of the most difficult types of folding knives that you can
do.
attempt. So it was excruciating, a lot of pain on my end.
Well, at least baptizing by fire, though. The next ones, at least you've gone to the extent.
Oh,
so,
yeah. For
right.
sure. Yeah. I learned so much during that process of making that knife that, the next one was much easier for me to, get something complete and prototyped and ready for manufacturing. Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah.
So at what point, and I'm assuming you do this full time now?
Yeah, I'm full time now. Yeah.
Yes.
I ended my day job 2018. Yeah.
Okay, so not too long after the first knife. So you realized after that first knife, hey, this is going to work. People are buying it. This is, and you went ahead and started to take the plunge not too far after.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Okay. Cool deal, man. I love to hear stories like that when you're just like passionate, just putting all your extra time into it, and then you get something that you're proud of, and then it works, right? And everybody likes it, and you get a following, that kind of stuff. So,
well, and, for me, like I had to like pull the trigger, because the amount of sleep that I was getting from doing the two was not sustainable. I mean, I remember I was a zombie for a year. I don't even really remember that period of time, because I was working until 2 or 3 a.m. on this project, and then going to work at 7. I mean, it's crazy. So I did that for a long time. So I'm sure I took some years off my life doing that. But I mean,
you're young. You're young. So tell me about the knives that you make in general. I know you've had different models, but is there a certain style, or is there a certain, are you making, trying to lean more tactical, middle of the road? I know that you're doing, folding knives, that type of stuff, but what's kind of the angle, or what niche are you trying to fill?
So, a lot of the terms that people use in the knife industry, I'll be honest with you, I'm not well researched on what people would consider a tactical knife or any of the other. I'm just not well, But what I would say is that I look at other knives like that are out on the market, and I view them from like, what do I not like about how that looks? Is the blade angled strangely, or like, did they do something weird with the handle? So it's more like, I like to design things that I think are like look good aesthetically. I mean, for just as my own personal opinion, some other people might think it's terrible looking, right? But for me, I really try to be genuine about what I think looks good. And then I try to hopefully customers enjoy my personal designs. And I think that when you're sort of in the upper end market, there are certain requirements that you need to meet for the customers to enjoy the knives at a certain level. So I listen to what customers want. I'll watch YouTube videos on knife reviews just to educate myself on what sort of like the next thing people like enjoy about the knife, what they don't enjoy about the knife, what some of the flaws are, and then I try to incorporate changes or model around what people want. So I really try to tailor it to what customers enjoy.
Yeah, it makes sense. So you're looking at things, that you're looking at knives yourself, and you've got this kind of vision of what you want them to look like, what you think looks good. But then also, as you're starting to produce knives, you're listening to people that are using them, the comments they're making, things like that, saying, okay, how can I improve? How can I take that feedback and put it into, doing the next version or the next? Is that what I'm hearing?
Exactly. Just an evolution of whatever, the people in the knife industry are enjoying at the time that they're enjoying them. I try to design something around, what's current.
Right.
Yeah.
Is there certain types of, steels or anything like that you lean towards?
So I've used quite a bit of different types of steels, although most of the steels that I've used, I haven't used in large quantities. So, but I found that, I really like CPM 154 personally. There's many advantages to that steel. It machines really nicely. It finishes really nicely. It's easy to harden. It's easy to get repeatable. I mean, I've made, I don't know, like 1,000 knives with it or something. I've made a lot of knives with CPM 154. So I know exactly how it's going to behave. And it takes a great edge. Edge retention, there's a whole section of the knife community that really is a stickler about certain aspects of a knife. Mm-hmm. But the reality is, how many times do people really use a knife that's in the upper end of the range enough to actually care about whether it gets 300 cuts or 500 cuts?
Gotcha.
That's my personal opinion about it, right? You might be years before you get 300 cuts on a really expensive knife, right? Gotcha. So to know the difference between the two is a little bit arbitrary in my opinion. But I also get that people really enjoy that the knife contains a certain steel because they're paying a premium price for it and they would like a certain steel. So on this current model, I'm going to offer both the 154 and 20 CV for the people who really enjoy a really, really high premium steel. So,
gotcha. Yeah, you mentioned on this new one. I think you've got one of those. Can you tell us about your newest model? What's it called?
Oh, sure. Yeah, and I'll show you. So this model is called the FSD.
That's beautiful.
Brand new design. Yeah. So this is the milling style one.
That's awesome.
Spacer. So this one has quite a bit of like little details that you'll see when you actually the customers get it in hand. And then I'm actually like hollow grinding the blade myself. Wow. I bought new equipment for that, so that's new to me. I have been CNC machining the bevels, but now I'm actually hollow grinding. And this one's unique in that it has a new sort of like locking mechanism, it functions kind of like a liner lock, but it's in a different directionally. It's about 90 degrees twisted from what you would consider like a liner lock. And so this push button actually releases the blade. So,
oh yeah, man, yeah. That's great. Yeah. It looks really smooth too.
Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. So is that a prototype or is that an actual that you've produced that you're showing there?
This one's actually part of the first production run. So the prototypes I actually just sold a couple of days ago, and so this would be part of the first production run. Yeah, and they're all I don't know if you can see this on camera, but they're all individually numbered, and then they have the blade steel engraved. So this one will have 154 there, which is
that's awesome.
And then it have the engraving of what number it is. Yeah.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. And when you say, just for our listeners, a lot of times when our listeners hear production run, they'll think of something different than a custom knife. They'll think of it as what we kind of refer to as a production knife, something you're sending out and you're getting mass produced. But when you say a production run, you're still meaning you literally making the knives, I mean that you producing them yourself. So they're still kind of all customs. Production run to you is just, I've got it finished, now I repeat it.
Yeah, exactly. So
Yeah.
I kind of distinguish the two, where I do two types of, I sell two different types of ways. So one way is that I'll take custom orders, meaning that I give customers the option to select from a limited number of options. And so I send them a sheet once I notify them via my subscriber list, which is on my website. If you sign up for that, then you'll get communications from me about when custom spots or production runs are available. So I do two types, which is the custom runs, which I call them custom runs. And then I say production runs, which means that I make them maker's choice. And then I provide them on my website for people to pick up when I drop them.
Gotcha. Yeah. So custom to you, is it, you've got they're all in the knife world, they're probably all customs, but custom to you means that I'm actually catering this to a specific individual who has placed an order and says, this is what I want, and I'm making it for that person.
That's correct.
Even though your production run, you're still making yourself, but it's totally custom, but not maker's choice. As you said, it's something that somebody has requested. What is for a knife for you, one that you're going to produce multiples of, versus a specific knife that you're tailoring towards an individual? Tell me what that price range looks like. What are the price range of your knives?
Oh, so like for this particular model, the FSD, the base price would be $775 for a CPM 154 blade, and then customs can get pretty wild. I mean, it depends on the materials used. I mean, if you have a full Damascus frame and you have a Damasteel blade and Damascus pocket clip, if you mean full dress, they can reach in the 2,000 range.
Gotcha.
Yeah, so anywhere. So my range of like previous models around 750 up to like 2,500. I think is the most expensive that I've sold.
You've done 2,500. Gotcha. Yeah, I mean, that's a nice knife. That's a lot of money for a knife, right? And like you said, there's probably not a whole lot of people spending $2,500 and then using it every day, using it as an everyday thing, to your point. So what's so it's 775 on that, on the FSD with the 154. What is it with the 20 CV?
The 20 CV is going to be $50 more expensive. So it's going to be $825 for the base for the 20 CV.
Gotcha. So that's not bad for the people, like you said, for the people that want it, that want that upgrade. So, man, I appreciate you going through that, showing your new model, talking about a little bit of the history there, and an overview of. I think it's really cool. You get to get your own shop you built at night while you're working in your garage. Is it still in your garage? Where are you making knives now? You get a shop or?
Yeah. So I actually designed the house that I'm in now, built in late 2017, or was it early 2018? I think it was finished early 2018. So it actually has a shop inside my house that was built like, properly, 8 inches of concrete, and like,
wow.
A large CNC machine in there, and, surface grinder. So yeah, it's a full functioning like metal shop that I just go downstairs and
yeah. So you're taking work. You're taking work at home to a totally different level, man. I
love that. I mean, I don't have to go anywhere during the this pandemic time. It's been, nothing better than just like, oh, I'm going to work.
It's all right there, right? Yeah.
There's no one around. It's just me in the shop. So yeah,
man, you couldn't have timed that any better, really.
Yeah,
how that worked out. I mean, man, building that out. Good. Yeah, man, that's awesome. That's awesome.
Yeah.
Well, man, I appreciate you spending some time with us today and talking to our audience here at KnifeJoy, and I'm sure they're going to love hearing from you. Is there anything else you'd like to say to the group before we go? I'll give you the mic.
No, I really appreciate you guys. You guys have been really supportive. I appreciate reaching out, and I think that these types of interviews really help people get a sense of who they're buying from. I think that there's a specialty, a quality to how the knife is made and where it comes from for people, especially collectors, right? I think they want to know like a little bit about where it's coming from. It adds to it, because you know that the knife that I build was built by me, and I touch every single piece of the knife. I mean, so I really care about like what happens with it. So when it's in your pocket, I think that it adds, in my personal opinion, a special quality to it. You know, when I'll buy knives, but I know exactly who they're coming from. And when I put it in my pocket, I actually like think a little bit about, even when I'm using it, I'm like, oh yeah, this guy made that, you know, I don't know, there's something special to it. So
yeah. I agree, absolutely, and to put that kind of to get to know you better, and people to know that, hey, this is this guy's he's in his house pouring over this thing and putting time into it, every little attention to detail and all that. I think it's awesome, man. I think what you're doing is great.
Yeah, I appreciate it. Yeah, thanks for the time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks for watching, guys. We'll catch you on the next one. Appreciate your time. If you haven't subscribed to us, hit that subscribe button and those notifications, and we'll be back soon.